Sean, congratulations on this new horror film, The Mill for Hulu.
Oh, thanks a lot.
So we have to ask you is what initially drew you that you wanted to direct this film?
I was looking for something that touched on some of these themes. I was looking for a contained dystopian science fiction thriller just because I love them. And I think it's a really interesting genre in which you can tackle big societal issues in a way that's also really fun and cinematic. And my producing partner Josh sent me this script, and it hit on everything I wanted. It was like this just fever dream of a story, and I stayed up all night just plotting how I was going to make the movie. And we actually made a blood pact that we were going to make it before the end of the year, and we did.
Now, I love this film because it's sort of like a social commentary, but I want to know from you which it was more of social commentary for. Is it a social commentary about like artificial intelligence or social commentary more about the corporate culture?
So I think there's a few things it's a social commentary on. I think there's obviously the artificial intelligence angle, there's corporate culture, there's labor issues at hand, there's all of those things which obviously we see in sort of the public discourse as well. But I think what really struck me is, and maybe this is a part of what's buried into those issues, which makes them interesting, which makes them controversial, is that I think Joe's story is really universal. I think it's a story of a guy who realizes that he's within a system that is taking more from him than it's giving to him. And I think that system can be anything. I think that system can be a relationship in your life. That system can be your job. That system could be your government. It could be whatever. Whatever's taking more from you than it's giving back. I think we need to examine those things, and we need to figure out ways that we can either break those systems or at least extricate ourselves from them. I think that's really what I identified with when I read it.
Now, how do you direct people who are naturally funny on, on screen typically into a horror movie? I mean, how do you make them do that transition?
I mean, I think comedy is like the hardest thing to do. I think if you're a super talented comedic actor, you can do just about anything. And if you look at actors like Robin Williams and Jim Carrey, like obviously there's great examples of them doing incredible dramatic work coming from comedy backgrounds. And obviously Rel is in Get Out, so we've seen Rel flex those skills before in a dramatic thriller. And then I had I produced a movie called I Love My Dad that Rel is in, and sitting on set watching him, there was a seriousness with which he approached his comedy and everything that he did that I just had it in the back of my mind from that moment on of really wanting to do a piece of dramatic material with him. And fortunately, he loved the script. He wanted to tell the story the same way that I did. So it's really its benefit, because I think also within comedy you have to be really vulnerable to be really funny. And I think to do good dramatic work, you have to be vulnerable, and that's really hard. There aren't a lot of people who are willing to go to some of those places.
I find your film very unique is because it's also the cast that's not seen on screen. And, I love Pat himself. I mean, what was that even more of a challenge, or was that made it easy to, to put these other folks into your film like this?
I think that's a balance that we had to find, and I think that's where we cast people that we knew and had relationships with in those other roles. It's Yeah, having off screen actors that are largely off screen, like that's a unique challenge both for those actors and obviously for Rel, who then has to act against them, and you can't look them in the eyes. So much of acting comes from people's eyes connecting. When that's taken away from you, everything else just has to be stronger.
Now, this production set is very unique. Could you talk about the production and your so-called mill that you have to put in the middle of things? Is that even workable?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. You can turn that thing all day.
Oh, really?
So I always start my production designer Amy Williams, who I always work with. She actually was in Italy when I sent her the script, and she started looking at real mills. There are old things in Europe, and she found some like medieval grist mills that changed really the look of what that mill is, and I think made it so much cooler. And then And then we when we started talking to my friend Colin, who builds the sets, we started talking about how we're going to do this and how we're going to actually make it. And he had the crazy idea to just build the cell. So that cell is 18-foot tall walls. That is 15,000 pounds of concrete. That is, I think like 60 yards of dirt that's actually on the ground in there. So him and his team went in, and within 2 weeks, they went from just a sound stage to an actual cell that you could lock people in that you could not get out of.
Wow, this is most impressive. I mean, that the mill is a very impressive film. I would hate to be stuck in that situation, most certainly. Thank you very much, Sean.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.